Hey everyone, welcome to the Silicon Alley Podcast. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course, your host of the Silicon Alley Podcast. So I'm super excited to share today's episode with you. It's with Sharon Tseung, who is the founder of Digital Nomad Quest. She quit her job as a marketing professional back in 2016, traveled the world for 2 years, and ended up building over 10 passive income streams on her digital nomad journey. Now Sharon teaches people how to build passive income and create financial and location independence. You're going to love this conversation with Sharon. She goes really in depth into how she actually built it up, her process of making the decision to jump ship, and the 6 months of work that she put in prior to her departure date to make sure that she was raring and ready to go. So you're going to love this episode, and I hope that you enjoy. And of course, share the podcast with others that you think would like this episode. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Sharon Tseung. All right. Well, Sharon, welcome to the Silicon Alley Podcast. Super excited to have you on and hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Sharon, you do some interesting things, have traveled the world spent 2 years traveling the world, building passive income, and have been involved in marketing and doing all sorts of things. So really excited to hear your story. But let's take a step back. Tell me a little bit about who you are and, a little bit more about Sharon.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey guys, my name is Sharon. Back in 2016, I basically quit my job and traveled for 2 years around the world as a digital nomad, basically building passive income along the way through kind of Etsy, Amazon, blogging, things like that. Basically came back to the Bay Area. Now I'm just kind of teaching people how to do that on the side. So I'm building up my brand, Digital Nomad Quest, and teaching people how to build passive income towards financial freedom. And currently, general manager at a startup right now, but basically that job has been very entrepreneurial as well. So all of it's been great. So so basically I would say teaching people how to, build passive income is my main entrepreneurial gig right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you made that decision to quit. And I guess maybe let's take a step back. Have you always been interested in, traveling and entrepreneurship and building passive income? What's your story? Who is Sharon?
Yeah. So I would say back in 2014, I did this month-long solo Europe trip, and that kind of inspired me to want to create that financial freedom for myself, because I was like, oh, I'm seeing all these people who are living life, and I'm stuck in this cubicle basically. And I was like, I want to see if I could basically create that freedom where I can travel when I want to. So that led me to kind of studying a bunch of books and blogs and stuff like that. About, the digital nomad life and how to build passive income. And then that just inspired me to basically book a one-way ticket to Stockholm 6 months out. So I was like, all right, this is my date. I'm going to leave my job. And I booked 6 months of accommodations and flights already beforehand. So I was like, all right, this is happening. Yeah. And I took some part-time remote positions just to make sure I was transitioning to that passive income safely, I guess, in terms of financially, but also just kind of booking everything 6 months in advance. I already knew I was going to be safe with it. Before I left, I started trying to build passive income through Etsy and Kindle actually. And it started working.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it started working. So I was like, okay, I'm sure I can figure this out. So I basically, just left and was able to build my passive income to a few grand a month. Was able to, basically save money during the whole, travels, and didn't have to worry too much about it basically. And, in Chiang Mai and places like that, you can basically spend $600 a month. It's crazy. So I ended up spending $1,400 a month on average in 2 years, and that's the cost of rent here, you know what I mean? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say actually in the Bay Area it's more than that. So I just thought it was actually a financially strong decision to actually leave and live life as well as build these passive income streams.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's huge that you were able to, test the waters. I like how you set up a plan before you just, jump ship. It sounded like you made that transition smoothly and like really put together a plan so that you could actually have 6 months to prepare. And then as you transitioned, so even taking a step further back though, like, have you always been interested in travel? And like, what were you doing before you quit?
Yeah, if we were to back up a lot, I did. So like, I know in high school, let's see, I just like was scared of traveling completely, but then I did this exchange student program after graduating, and then it was in Japan, and that just made me like really interested in travel afterwards. I used to hate flying and stuff like that. Now I'm like cool with it. It's all good. Yeah, I would say that part just made me like more interested in travel, but I would say that month-long solo Europe trip made me travel in a different way, because I feel like travel is really different with friends versus like yourself. So that opened my eyes a lot to how travel can be, because you really get to meet like locals and like experience that life abroad as an actual like local sort of, versus like just hang out with friends in a different place. So I just wanted to be able to do that more long term if I wanted to. And who knows, like in the future I'll probably go out and do that again, but right now like home is good right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was that process like, the decision-making process? So you obviously said you were reading different blogs and it sounds like getting into some of the passive income type content that's out there. Like what led you to go from just like consuming that to being like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go do this?
Yeah, well, I had been in the Bay Area for like over 20 years, like just living here. And I was like, I need to experience life elsewhere. And I felt like I'm young. This is like the perfect time to do it. If I'm not going to do it, I'm going to regret it. And even when I booked it, I was like, I can back out if I want to, because the flight ticket was pretty cheap. Like it wasn't too bad. So I was thinking, all right, we'll see what happens. But I ended up just preparing so much, ended up booking everything and like making that passive income. I was like hustling really hard. I was heads down working. I didn't even want to hang out with people. I was like, I didn't even tell. Mission. Yeah, definitely. I didn't even tell anyone except like one of my closest friends. And then I told people like way closer to the date, because I just didn't want other people's opinions like affect how I was doing everything. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna regret it if I don't do it. And I'm really happy I did, because I feel like I learned so much on my travels, as well as like I ended up being able to build these income streams that allow me to do that in the future if I want to, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's awesome. So I'm assuming you still have those income streams still going?
Yeah. So basically I have Etsy, Amazon, my blogging income, like from course sales and affiliates. So everything's still going, and I'm building it up more too. I also have like rental properties that help cash flow, and actually closed yesterday on a new property, which is cool. So yeah,
nice. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's all still going. Like last year I didn't even really touch it, and it like cash flowed me really well. And I'm just trying to build that up while I'm kind of learning at my position right now. But there are several reasons why I came back, because I felt like just, building passive income is not like fulfilling enough. I feel like just like, focused on the numeric goals, as well as just like home is just like a different feeling that like a lot of my friends and family, like they just get me way better here. And I just wanted to, I want to be around that ambitious energy of the Bay Area, right? So like when you're in Chiang Mai, a lot of people are just trying to chill, like cover their expenses, and they're good. So once I realized that, I was like, okay, I want to come home. I want to like hustle. I want to like build something impactful. So like right now, building my brand and teaching people how to build that passive income has been super fulfilling, because I'm getting messages like, oh, this is helping me so much. Like I'm discovering how to make passive income. I'm starting to make passive income through, like one of my Etsy students, like they started, making a bunch of sales recently, and they're like, oh my God, it works. Like, thank you so much. And that's just like really fulfilling for me to be able to help other people create that freedom. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. So you decide to take this trip. You don't tell it sounds like you don't tell anyone except for closest friend. Why is that? Is it just that you're not sure that you would have gotten the support? Was it more just like, that's how you needed to make that decision? Like, what was the reason why you didn't tell anyone until it got closer to the date?
Yeah, I guess it was just like I didn't want to like know what other people felt about it and have these like expectations that it's going to happen or not. Like I wanted to make sure it was all aligned before I told people. Yeah, I guess those were the main reasons. Like I didn't want to get distracted or confused about what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure all my decisions were like based off what I wanted. So
cool. Awesome. I like that. So what are some of the, so you mentioned a couple of the passive income streams. Like what all did you do to generate, you said you got up to like a few $1,000s a month, like passively? What were some of the things that you did?
Yeah, so I sell, I basically sell digital downloads on Etsy. So I sell Photoshop templates and Microsoft Word templates. So it's really passive because, you have the digital products on the marketplace, and whenever people buy, they just get it instantaneously. So it's like pretty passive. The only part you have to maintain is like the customer support part, like if people have questions, but that doesn't really take too much time. Also, there's merch by Amazon. So basically, it's like a platform where you can upload shirt designs, and then they put it on like apparel, like hoodies, sweatshirts, whatever. And then when people order it, Amazon will actually fulfill your orders for you. So then, so that's like super passive because you're paid out in royalties and you don't even need to deal with like customer support at all. There's also Amazon FBA. There's so many different routes that I'm going into, so fulfillment by Amazon is basically where you work with manufacturers and kind of get product over to the Amazon warehouse, and whenever you get orders, they fulfill it for you as well. So that's pretty passive because every time your stock's running low, you just order some more product over. Once you get a winning product, you just start making sales. So that, as well as, my blog and like my brand, where I basically teach people how to do this stuff. And I have course sales and affiliates where I recommend different products that people might like. I also have a niche site where I do affiliate marketing there. So it's like I basically tried out all these different routes and found out they all work. You just kind of need to put in that effort and see which one resonates with you. I just try to inspire other people to do that because there are so many opportunities out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like you've tried a lot of different things and a lot of experience in terms of building passive income.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
What are some of the like more rewarding channels that you found to be like that work for you?
Yeah, I think whenever you're building like a brand, then it's way more fulfilling. So I feel like, that's why I wanted to come back and like build something where I'm, building my personal brand of teaching people how to do this, because like, for example, selling one-offs on like Amazon or merch by Amazon, it's not as fulfilling. Building up your Etsy shop is more fulfilling because it's like your own shop, branded, everything. So whenever it's kind of something you're building from, a place where you're like trying to grow a brand or like something you're passionate about and like that's impactful and can help people, I feel like that's, I feel like that's where it's more fulfilling and something you should go for more so.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. So you said you're getting some really good feedback, and you said specifically the one student that you have that's now having a lot of success on Etsy. Like, what's that feeling like helping other people achieve that passive income?
Yeah, I think that's way more fulfilling than what I, when I was like super just focused on how much money I'm gonna like keep making, and now it's more about how can I like build my brand and help other people like at scale. As well as, you know, I have like a Facebook group where I can help each person's question like one-on-one type of thing. So being able to, being able to like provide value, it's just so much more fulfilling and rewarding. And I think everyone should go into it with like a purpose, like a why of like why you're doing everything, because because that's when it just all aligns and you're like way more happy about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you work hard, right? You've done all these different things and put in the effort to figure out how to build these different income streams, and just in general buying rental properties. Where does that come from?
I think I've always had it in me. Like, I feel like I still play video games and stuff like that. And like when I play, I play from this entrepreneurial side too. Like, so like, for example, like in Diablo 2, like I'm like trading items. Like I'm like trading items. I'm on like Neopets. I'm like using the stock market and like doing basically retail arbitrage where I'm like buying goods and like selling it in my shop. And I'm like, oh, like this is something that's natural to me that I enjoy, like that whole side of it. So I've always been that type to be like, I want to be my own boss. I want to like, you know, hustle and do my own thing. So I guess I've always been like that. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. On video games specifically.
Right.
That's clever. Yeah. So what is it like building, building these passive income streams and then going to travel the world for 2 years as you do this and like see that you can make it? Like, what's that experience like for folks that are interested in that, or maybe just starting the journey down doing something similar?
Yeah, I mean, the whole feeling of just having that freedom it really changes how you view things. Like, you know, a lot of people think that you have to work for money rather than, you know, have money work for you. So a lot of people think that they're stuck at their job and they don't like it and they can't change anything about it. And just having that feeling that there's passive income coming, you can leave when you want to, or just, you know, it just like opens up so much more for you. It's like less restricting. You can take the positions you want to like actually take, or you don't even need to take any positions. And just having everything done on, you know, your laptop, it's just like you don't need to be stuck in any place either, which is like crazy to think about. So like as I was traveling and I was seeing how little I needed to like enjoy life, it just like changed my mind completely of like, oh, like the world is open, life is open, too many possibilities. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I feel like that whole digital nomad experience is super helpful in like kind of changing your mindset.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so you brought up Chiang Mai. For folks that aren't familiar, Chiang Mai is in Thailand. It's like one of the, like if you're going to go to either the beaches in Thailand or Bangkok and then Chiang Mai, it's like those are the three main sort of like areas where tourists hang out. What what was that experience like actually living and not necessarily just in Chiang Mai, but just in general overseas, while, you know, realizing that you can live on way less than what you thought?
So I did like 6 months in Europe and then 6 months in Asia, came back for like a little bit around US, traveled around there in Canada, and then went back out to Southeast Asia. Spent like maybe 4 months in Chiang Mai actually. And Chiang Mai is definitely a great place for nomads. So like it's one of they say like the capitals for like nomads kind of thing. So it's like if you're just starting out, that's like a great place to start. And the vibe there is definitely like really chill, and I just would just go to cafes and like work every day, like just for like a few hours, maybe a couple hours, and then like go have fun, like walk around and stuff like that. So I guess the feeling is very like you don't have a set schedule, and that's what all entrepreneurs face. So that's like a huge change where you have to figure out, oh, what are the tasks you need to do today, and like when do you want to start doing them? Do you want to just like chill, like, you know what I mean? Like you have that freedom, which some people don't like, but I personally really enjoyed it, where I could wake up when I wanted to. I could just walk around and talk to people when I wanted to. So that I guess that part of it was great. And I did a month at each place. I basically felt like I got to live the local life in different cities, all around Europe, all around Asia. I would say the part that might get harder is like the loneliness part. It wasn't too bad for me, but I think like a lot of nomads like experience that and are like, you know what, this isn't for me. I want to go home. But I would say like there are many ways now to like meet other nomads. So, you know, there's like online communities where I was able to meet a bunch of people while I was out there. So it wasn't too bad. It's just like, awesome. Yeah, I feel like the people from home though probably get me the most, and maybe other nomads might not feel that way. But that was just my personal experience. I did like meet some close friends that I still talk to this day that are still, you know, my good homies. But like, yeah, so I guess the digital nomad life, it's not for everyone, but you know, it was cool to me.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. So how did you figure out digital nomad, like that lifestyle was for you? And like, if someone is thinking about it, like you mentioned, there's a loneliness factor. Like, what are some of those things that people may or may not be aware of on the digital nomad lifestyle?
So you're asking like what people might not know about?
Yeah, like what's something that you like maybe thought going into it, and then once you were actually experienced that lifestyle and living in all these different places, like became like a big thing that you just didn't think about?
Yeah. Well, starting out, I was like, this kind of basically meets all my expectations. Like, this is dope. Like, I'm having a great time. So like starting out, I was like, this is great. And I think after a while you're like, oh, I'm getting used to it. So that's one thing you like realize later, that like you get used to changing locations, where like most people might be like, oh my God, this is like tiring or whatever. But it's like every month, you know, you're going to like be there for a little bit. And then like the friends that you make that are locals, like you might not talk to them again. Like, so I prefer to, you know, meet like nomad friends versus like locals, so that you can keep in touch with them, but also, you know, be able to speak with locals and learn about the culture is great too though. So I did a mix of both. And then I would say there's like this digital nomad like 2.0 phase where one of the other nomads talked about this on YouTube, but it's kind of like you start like appreciating things about home that like you didn't before maybe. The structure is nice too. And so I think kind of the reasons why I came back, like I touched upon it before, but I think it's like it really is like what resonates with you most, of like who gets you the most, and like it's like about the people, I think. So I guess like that's what made me come back. And I would say that digital nomad 2.0 phase, it's like you're getting used to it and you kind of appreciate home too. So you can decide if it's for you or not. So I would say it's like partially me, because it's like when I'm home, I still like think about it. I'm still like, man, like I do miss that side, you know? So it's like, having that freedom though is like what I need to be like, okay, I can stay home when I want to, or like I can leave when I want to. So
nice. No, it makes a lot of sense. And so I spent a year in Thailand. It wasn't a digital nomad thing, but it was like teaching English through the State Department, and like we had some time off. So I spent some time in like Chiang Mai, and definitely get that like vibe. And there was definitely a lot of like expats that were living that similar like lifestyle, digital nomad lifestyle. So I know exactly what you're talking about, specifically in Southeast Asia. Like,
oh, interesting. Yeah.
That community is like super tight. Like you can always seem to find folks, but it was something that was interesting in terms of like when you're away for so long, like missing those things, like you said, about home. So
what made you come back to home?
Well, my program was a year long, so it was a set thing. But it was a similar thing where it's like, I really enjoyed it, and I was teaching. So I was like, it wasn't like I was able to like travel all the time, but you know, weekends and all that kind of stuff. But it was just a similar thing. Like at some point it was like, I want to like see my family again. And like you miss friends, and that there's certain things that all of a sudden you wouldn't think that you really wanted a hamburger or something like that, you know, like just silly stuff. So, Mexican food. That's what we really crave. Like Mexican food. You can't find good Mexican food in Southeast Asia. It's really hard.
No, I get it. I think food was like one of the biggest factors when I was in like Europe, and I'm all that Asian food. So when it wasn't there, I was like, or it was like way more rare. So like I would like frequent one restaurant each city I would go to. Like I'll be like, oh, there's an Asian spot. Like I'm gonna go hit that up. And it's like you start missing the food and you start missing some things about home for sure. I do have a friend who like is like basically leaving you, like he's never going to come back to the US. He's like, you know what, like I love this. And it just really depends on, I think, your personality and like I think the people you meet too. Because I think he's like good to not ever come back type of thing, whereas for me, I'm like, I enjoy both sides, and I like the Bay Area and stuff like that. So
nice. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the personal finance side. So obviously you had a lot of success building up passive income. You own rental properties. You're still very focused on that. I can tell like just from our conversation, like you thought this through. You weren't going in there with like no money and like, let's hope that I can figure out how to like make some money blogging today. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, how would you describe your relationship with money?
Yeah, I've always been like careful about it and like I think I understand it pretty well because like I feel like my parents raised me to like, you know, save and invest and stuff like that. So I've always had that kind of background. So I think now I care more about like cash flow over like my nest egg, but like I do consider both. So I think I'm doing well on both sides. And I'm trying to I want to get more into basically real estate investment. And I do have another property that I'm in escrow for too. So like, nice. So yeah, I'm really trying to build up those units because I like the buy and hold model with real estate where you're like cash flowing. So yeah, I'll be doing that more. And man, this like coronavirus thing, like I feel like everyone's going to probably buy up stocks later soon. Like, and I've been putting it all in real estate, but like, I feel like that'd be a good place to like, you know, put it into once everything dies down with coronavirus.
Yeah. It's interesting to think like how that'll be affected. Cause typically like, except for 2008, when there's been financial crisis, real estate's usually been a safe haven for people to like put money because it's a store of value. And 2008 was really the exception if you look like historically back on crises. So it's interesting. Yeah. Like with coronavirus, like how does that affect real estate? And obviously you're still moving forward and all that stuff. So
yeah, well, I was getting it before it even happened. So it's like a long closing process. And I was like, oh man, because it can affect, you know, if you're doing buy and holds, like if tenants can't, you know, they don't have the money to like pay for rent. That's like, you know, that everyone. Yeah. I feel bad for all these people who are, you know, like losing jobs and stuff like that during this crisis. So we'll see what happens with this whole real estate thing, but yeah. So I would say like with my finances, I guess I'm all about cash flow. So that's why like building online businesses and real estate to me are like really fascinating for me. So.
Yeah. Those are all really cash flow based, right? There's not a whole lot of like overhead or they're not super capital intensive.
Exactly.
And yeah, interesting. Mm-hmm. Any advice for folks that want to, maybe they've been saving up and they want to look at building more cash flow, whether it's passive or real estate investing, which depending on how you do it can or cannot be passive. What advice would you give to folks?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like I named like so many different routes, right, for passive income. And I feel like it depends on kind of your time, your capital, and like what you're interested in, right? As well as your strengths. Yeah. So like a lot of these have different things. Like I would say real estate, you need more capital. And it might require less time actually. Like during my process, it didn't take too much time for me to like do that. Yeah. But then like when it comes to building up like an Etsy shop, and you got to make all the products and then make all the listings and then do the marketing for it. That takes like more time, but it doesn't take that much capital because, you know, it's like free to set up your shop. It's like only 20 cents a listing. If you created your own website, that doesn't take too much capital as well, but that takes more time. Like you need to build up a brand that takes like a few years. So I think it really depends on those 4 factors of time, capital, like your strengths and your passions.
Sure.
And then I would say like, you know, like pick one and then try to like focus on it and then see if that works. I wouldn't like scatter yourself too much where you're like trying everything at once. So I always like worked on one, and then when it started like doing really well, I would try to master another one. So it's like you got to, you know, master one before you go to the next one. So that's my advice around that. When it comes to the whole digital nomad thing and like pulling the trigger to like go do it, I feel like people always worry about what's the right time, and they're like, there's never going to really be a right time. So I do feel like it's all about just like taking action and going. For me, you know, I mentioned that like I'd been here for like over 20 years and I wanted to see what else was out there. Another thing was I wanted to see if there's another place I could call home instead of like here. And I feel like, that's another thing that I forgot to mention, that like you're going to figure out what is home to you, right? And to me, like this was home, but like I needed to experience that to be like, oh, what does home mean for me? Like, where can I see myself living? And being able to like go leave and like do all this stuff really teaches you a lot, and like teaches you a lot about yourself as well, of like what you want in life. So my advice is just like go for it for all of these things. Like take action on the passive income, take action if you want to leave and like see the world. So
yeah, I love that. So what did you learn? Like, what did you learn about yourself during that experience? You mentioned that that's something that happens. Like, what is something that you learned?
There's a lot. I mean, I would say, you know, when I was traveling, a lot of places, or a lot of the people there were making like under $1,000 a month or something like that. And that's like average, like that's what's normal. And I forgot like about my privilege, and I was like, oh my gosh. But also what I learned was these people are happy. Like a lot of these people are enjoying life, and they're like, it's not even an issue, right? About like trying to chase success. Whereas like Bay Area, everyone's like all success oriented and like trying to be ambitious, where I saw this other side of like, oh, like this is another way of living, and they're actually maybe happier than most people back home. So I was like, oh, like there's just so much you learn from seeing how other people live, because you're like, okay, the way I live is not exactly like, it's not the right way or anything like that, right? So it's like you learn more about you know, different ways of living, and you can actually, you know, choose the one that like resonates with you. So I think that taught me a lot about appreciating home, about my privilege, as well as appreciating how other people live. So there's not one right way to live or anything like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. There's definitely, when you get out and experience different cultures, and especially when like what you did, where you get to spend an extended period of time and you're not just in like a fancy resort or something like that, you can really like broaden your perspective on what it means to like live and just like the things that you really need in life. I feel like you just learn so much. So tell me what's next. So what are your dreams, goals with Digital Nomad Quest, and just in general as you build up your brand and are now back in the Bay Area building up your real estate profile? Like what are your targets? Like what are you focused on?
A lot of different things, I would say. Right now with like building my brand and teaching people how to build passive income, I want to just keep going at that, because I can see it more and more that it's impacting people's lives. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. So I know it's like that part is a long process, you know, it's like a long-term thing, but I think it's like fulfilling, and I want to keep going at it, keep creating like free, valuable content to people, and hopefully people resonate with it. Also, with the rental properties, like in the future, I'd love to just have places all around the world and like Airbnb them out. That's just like my dream, to be able to do that, and then like be able to visit those vacation places when I want to. So, so hopefully
Nice.
that works out. I think just have a lot of dreams. Also, like my current position, we like just launched our app. So basically trying to get users and like basically get retention. So that's like a huge thing. So that's why I currently if I didn't like my job, I would like definitely leave it, because I have that passive income coming in. But yeah, exactly. But I feel like because it's teaching me a lot, we're basically building this whole thing from scratch, this app, and like
it's Visva, is that how you say it? Is that right? Visva?
Yeah, it's Visva.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm like the GM there and trying to like basically get this thing going. So it's been really exciting, and I'm learning a lot from it too. So that's another thing that we're working on, and hopefully that does well as well. So a lot of different things I'm interested in, and we'll see where life takes me. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that attitude. And so just quickly, you mentioned Airbnb specifically. Is that the model that you're using for your rentals, your buy and hold, or is it long-term rentals? What are you using?
Those will be long-term rentals. I feel like the places that I invested in, it's not, so I did out of state for these two that I'm like closing on.
Okay.
But I feel like that location is like not as, exciting as the ones that, like, I don't know, like certain places that are more like, oh, like this will do really well on Airbnb. I don't think like the ones that I'm doing are going to be, but
that you did.
Yeah, but actually my boyfriend and I were doing an Airbnb business with his place. So I forgot to mention that. Nice. So we're going to try that out.
To the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see how that one goes. Hopefully it goes well.
Cool. So Sharon, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I would say probably like a lot of the things I kind of mentioned with like, choosing passive income, which stream, as well as like taking action, moving forward, like taking action on passive income, taking action on the travels you want to do. I think it's all about just kind of figuring out what's like true to yourself and like going for that. I think that was a lot of my journey as well, of like overcoming those barriers of like what society is telling me is like normal or like right to do, and just like trying to do stuff that's like based off what I want. So I think a lot of it is like just being in tune with that. So if you guys are trying to figure out like what the right path is, just kind of like listen to what really is like what your heart really is telling you, that like if you don't do this, you're going to regret it. So
nice. Great advice. So a few, I call them rapid fire questions, but you don't have to like rapid fire. I actually like longer responses because I think they're more insightful. But what would you say is the best investment that you've made?
Good question. Well, so you're saying like, passive income wise, or just like anything?
However you want to interpret it.
Okay. I mean, I could just say like that whole journey, to be honest, because it's like an investment in myself and like going out there, doing something more true to myself and doing like what resonates with me. So the digital nomad life, I guess, and building passive income. Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Best and worst part of, I'll say, digital nomad life. Entrepreneurship is usually the question, but I guess both.
Okay. Best part, I think, is for me, the way I travel is like not to just see attractions. I like to walk down the streets and like talk to people and meet people, learn about their lives. So I think that's like the most exciting part, where you like can do whatever you want, because you're not like with friends and family and stuff. You can just like go out and like learn a whole new culture or whatever, right? Like how other people are doing things. Worst part is kind of like what I mentioned earlier, of like, I guess, loneliness a little bit. I think what is the loneliness? I'm trying to think. I guess it's more like homesickness sometimes.
Okay.
I don't feel like I had it too much with loneliness and homesickness, but I do feel like there are parts of it where you miss like the food, or miss like being able to hang out with family and stuff like that. So little things like that. Yeah. That probably a lot of digital nomads probably end up going home because of those things.
Yeah. Makes sense. What's the dumbest money mistake you've made?
Uh, I don't know if I've had one, to be honest.
Okay.
That sounds
Well,
kind of
that's
like,
good.
I don't know, that sounds kind of like cocky or something, but but I think I guess I try to be really calculated with everything. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I get some like anxiety sometimes, so it kind of actually works in my favor sometimes because I think I make better decisions with it. So maybe.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then probably most frivolous way you've spent money, probably a tough one to answer as well.
Yeah, because I feel like I've always had that mindset of like, let me kind of save and
Yeah.
stuff. I know this is random, but like back in high school, I used to teach chess. So I taught
Okay.
at chess at like 5 different schools and I was, making good money from it. And I was like, man, like I should
Nice.
just spend it. So I just started buying a bunch of clothes. So that, I guess that would be like a scenario where I'm like, okay, I didn't need to do that. But that's like back in high school and I can just, it's when
Yeah.
you're young, it's like, it's fine.
Exactly. Um, so what do you think is the biggest challenge facing everyday Americans when it comes to finances?
Yeah, I think the whole saving aspect, I didn't realize it, but a lot of Americans seem to have difficulty with just like saving that money and they just love to spend it because they feel like maybe, you're working so many hours, so you deserve, luxury. So you might as well spend all your money. Um,
Yep.
and then a lot of people, don't pay down their debts and stuff like that. I feel like I was like really privileged that like my parents kind of paid for my like college tuition and everything. So when I came out of college, I didn't have to worry about student loans and stuff like that. So I feel for them that like, when you're coming out of it and you have like a lot of debt, it's hard. I think if people improved on saving and then like investing, that'd be really good. I think like I view kind of if I were working a job, I view that money as kind of like this was my time. Like I spent this many hours making that money, so I view purchases like that took me this much time to like make that. So it's like
Yeah.
that changes your mindset a little bit too. Like okay, let me save and let me try to build passive income where the money works for you, so you can like change that mindset and not be confined by those restrictions.
Yeah. I love that advice, the bringing in the time aspect. Because I think when you put it in that perspective, it's like, holy crap, I'm going to essentially spend a week's worth of work on this, whatever big, new TV or laptop. Like, is it really worth that? Like,
Exactly.
you start to think that way. And I think when you bring, like you said, that's the whole thing with passive income. You start to bring in the time factor of like letting money work for you and instead of you always working for money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
cool. Nice. And then last question I've got before I give you the floor. What advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
Wow. It's a good question. 13, not even like 18.
You can
Let's
do
see.
18. I don't know if you want to, if 18 is more
Well,
applicable,
I guess
but
my
just
young,
like, starting out. So.
yeah. Well, I guess maybe the whole thing I mentioned earlier about just like living a life true to yourself, and I feel like um I try not to have any regrets or anything like that. I know in college I did like I didn't, hustle or anything like that really. I just had a good time. I did well in school. I used to, well, I still kind of do music and stuff like that, but like I used to do a lot of like YouTube music stuff, and I would do that sometimes. But like I never really thought about my future or my dreams and stuff like that. It could be good to like start thinking about that and like start thinking about passive income early. But at the same time, I don't have regrets because college was a great time for me. So like, I don't want to take that back and be like, oh, you should have like worked harder. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess my advice is, yeah, live life true to yourself. Maybe think about passive income and like your dreams in the future more earlier, but at the same time, no regrets.
Awesome. I love it. So I want to jump back. You mentioned that when someone's first starting out to pick one passive income stream and focus on it and then move on to the next one. How long should someone spend on it if they like if it's not seeing success, like when should they move on? Do you have any advice on that front?
Yeah, that's hard because I think like for me, it was pretty easy because it was like, oh, like it's working. But one of the things, like for example, Kindle, like it was working, but it wasn't what I was into either. So it's also a matter of like, are you enjoying it or not? I think that's probably the biggest one, right? So it's like, if you are having fun with it, then like keep going, because for me, like building my brand is like fun. So I don't really think about the money part, which is like, the beauty of it, of like, okay, this has a purpose, so like the money will come later. So that's like, I think my advice around that, of like try to find the ones that kind of resonate with you, because you'll burn out, you're gonna get sick of it if you don't like it.
Makes sense. I love it. Well, Sharon, that's all I've got. I'll give you the floor if there's anything that you want to share with the audience in general. How can people connect with you, find you, Digital Nomad Quest, what channels, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So my site is DigitalNomadQuest.com. I also have a course out called the Etsy Entrepreneur. If you guys are interested in building passive income through Etsy, you can start learning how to make your first $1,000 a month passively with that course. And then I also have YouTube. So it's my full name, Sharon Tseung, last name Tseung. It's hard to pronounce, or people think it's hard to pronounce. And then, social channels, just my full name. So I do also have a podcast. It's called the Digital Nomad Quest podcast with Sharon Tseung. So you guys can check that out as well on, iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for sitting down. This is a lot of fun, and I appreciate you sharing your story and advice, and wish you all the best as you build up Digital Nomad Quest and brand, and continue to help people create passive income and all the things that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. So that concludes today's episode of the Silicon Alley podcast and my conversation with Sharon Tseung. Obviously, she's done some really impressive things, building 10 different passive income streams, being able to travel for 2 years and doing some incredible things. I really like how she was able to break out of the sort of status quo and social norms of saying, here's exactly the path that you need to follow, and blazing her own trail of becoming a digital nomad and doing it successfully, actually saving money while on her journey, which is super impressive. So right now, with COVID going on, all the sorts of things that are going on, I think it's really important that people are able to build up these passive income streams. So please follow the advice of Sharon. Find other ways to support yourself in these interesting times, because you never know what can happen. And I think we're all learning some lessons right now. So anyway, thank you so much for being a listener and viewer of the Silicon Alley podcast. It means the world to me. I'm your host, William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course, your host of the Silicon Alley podcast. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.